first guest is the anchor of ABC's World News Tonight with Peter Jennings, and his latest special, Peter Jennings Reporting, The American Game, can be seen next Thursday night, so check that out. Please welcome, folks, to our show for the first time, Peter Jennings.
I know that Andy looks better dressed. I can't make up my mind about Max. Okay? We got
Max
work.
can pull it off, actually. He wears those European Speedos.
Yes, I noticed. For a while.
Well, thanks a lot, Peter.
I didn't think you looked that bad.
Yeah. You know, first of all, thanks so much for coming on.
I'm delighted I'm on.
And I wasn't kidding when I said in the monologue, I would love to have a voice like yours.
I'd like to have your mind.
You really wouldn't want that. Thank you.
Can you imagine what I could do after midnight?
Yeah. Well, no, you have to actually, you represent a network and you also represent the news. So you couldn't act like a jackass the way I can. People...
Ask my colleagues.
Oh, really? Well, actually, it's funny because I've dug into your past for this interview. And what shocked me, because I wouldn't be shocked if it was anybody else, but I always look at people like yourself
You
and
look
think...
much better in person. You really do.
You're not bad yourself.
I mean, we could frolic.
Well, all right. I looked into this. You were, and you wouldn't expect this of a network news anchor, but you were considered the Dick Clark of Canada at one point. Is that not true?
Boy, Dick would be horrified to hear that.
You had kind of a teeny bopper show.
When I was starting out in this business, I did a program called Club 13 on a local television station in which I worked, and it was a Saturday afternoon dance party. You do everything to get ahead in the world.
You,
right?
Hey, I do, yeah.
I noticed.
Now quiet. You hosted a show where it was a dance contest show?
No, it was a dance party. It was like Bandstand, American Bandstand.
And you'd walk around with a microphone?
I tried to stay still. I worked in a small television station, which was just going on the air in Canada when private television was going on the air for the first time. I got hired. You had to do everything. So you had to do the news, you had to cover politics, had to do the farm broadcast, occasionally had to do the religious broadcast, you had to do the bandstand show. I was 20, I guess, 21. It has come back to haunt me in the past, as you've just made clear.
Well, how do you, I don't understand how you go from the news. It wasn't all one show. You wouldn't say, and that, you know, that tragic event still, they're searching for the bodies, but now the Frug, everybody, and people would start, I mean, you separated the show.
Yes, I did. I separated. But it did come back to haunt me. Years later, when I was ABC's chief foreign correspondent living in London, I went to Rome to cover a conclave of bishops. They were dealing with some enormous thing, and I traveled on a plane with the British Cardinal Basil Hume, very important fellow, access to everything. And I sat beside him on the plane. I thought it really impressed the hell out of him. And we got to the airport in Rome, and some lady suddenly said, "You're Peter Jennings." And I sort of preened a bit, thinking the Cardinal mirror. She said, "You're Peter Jennings." And as I drew myself up to my imperious height, she said, "You used to do Club 13. And the Cardinal just sort of put up his nose and left the airport. I never got access to him at all.
But you have a more, I think you have a more youthful image than some of your colleagues, because when we were talking...
Dan would love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dan would really love that.
Well, no, there's a reason I say this, because we were talking about you today, some of us, and one of the producers on our show said that he's a Deadhead. He used to go to all the Grateful Dead shows, and he saw you 2 different times at Grateful Dead shows.
Didn't smell me, though. Right?
Well, no.
First time I ever took my son to a Grateful Dead concert, I remember, I've forgotten how old he was. He was young. He was under 10, I guess, or maybe about 10. I remember having to send him to school the next day scrubbed with a note saying, he didn't touch it. He didn't smoke anything. But the smoke was so...
You seem very defensive on this matter. I didn't say anything. It's hard for me to picture you, you know, with a tie-dyed poncho spinning, you know, at a Dead show.
Really?
You don't see Cronkite at those things.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised if you saw Walter. I saw Walter last weekend. He looks younger and better than ever.
Really? I'm curious. You've reported around the world. You've been everywhere.
I've been a lot of places.
Scariest thing that ever happened to you?
Oh. Matter of perception, really, lots of them. And more happen to devout cowards than I think to brave guys. When I first started at ABC in the mid-1960s, I covered the civil rights movement in the South. And I got left by a producer who I hope now is ailing.
That may be the meanest thing I've ever heard someone say.
In Natchez, Mississippi, after dark, in the middle of the civil rights, we'd gone to Natchez because the NAACP, the National Association of the Advancement of Colored People, had decided they would integrate Natchez, which is a wonderful old town on the banks of the Mississippi. And all the reporters knew or had the good sense to pull out before dark. And this guy insisted my cameraman and I stay. And we got chased that night for about 105 miles by the Klan. I think that was the scariest.
105 miles? Yeah. Not on foot. You were in cars.
Back to Jackson. Right. We were in cars. We were in cars.
That is, for that, I don't think anything would top that.
I say it's a matter of perception. I did the last interview, I think, with Saddam Hussein just before the Gulf War broke out. And we flew in from Jordan next door and had the only aircraft on the runway in Baghdad. And it all seemed to go very well. He was actually quite charming. And they then took the tapes away to check them. And the tapes didn't come back and didn't come back.
How can you be with Saddam Hussein as the war is breaking out?
No, I said before. No, it was several days before.
Oh. But he was still getting kind of angry at America at that point.
Yes, he was.
And you're sitting in a room, hey, but you're Canadian.
No, I said I'm from Yugoslavia.
So you got out of the whole thing, yeah. Well, quickly, I want to mention your special, Peter Jennings reporting the American game.
I spent a wonderful time last summer with Marty Smith, my producer, and a couple of great camera teams in Hagerstown, Maryland, filming a group of Little League teams trying to make it to the World Series of Little League. And as I think you probably suspect, Little League, as with baseball in general, is sort of a metaphor for American life. And we met a lot of kids. As I say at the beginning, you wish were yours, and some you were glad or not. I met a lot of families.
Did you meet a lot of fathers that were taking it way too seriously?
Yes, and in fact, there's one of the hardest things for me ever was to find a father truly abusing his child on film, on videotape, and having to confront him in the broadcast about his treatment of his son. But the whole thing is, it's a sort of wonderful, romantic thing about America in the middle of summer. I had a wonderful time doing it.
Well, that special is called Peter Jennings Reporting the American Game. It's on ABC Thursday, July 30th at 9:30 p.m. It sounds interesting.
You're nice to mention.
The World News Tonight with Peter Jennings, of course, on ABC weeknights. Thanks so much for coming by.
To meet you.
Really, yeah, it was great to have you on the program.
Nice to see you.
Peter Jennings, everybody. You got to stick around. David Wells is coming up. We'll take a break.